Good afternoon from Cambridge and welcome to the Cambridge Service Alliance webinar. My name is Florian Ermanter. I'm working in the Institute for Manufacturing and I'm working with the Cambridge Service Alliance. This presentation, this webinar, is basically about using business ecosystems mapping to generate new competitive value propositions. A little bit of background to this, what we've been doing and why we're doing this in the first place. The Cambridge Service Alliance, in a wider sense, has always been very interested in business ecosystems, as well from a digital point of view. But then, if you wish to understand a business ecosystem, or if you wish to understand an ecosystem as a platform, you need to understand a business ecosystem in the first place. And this has basically brought us to understanding business ecosystems in the first place. So what I'm going to talk about in general is a little bit of background about business ecosystems, why we study them, the application of this case study in specific, and then I'm going to give you some form of discussions and findings, what we found, and conclusions and managerial implications for this in a general sense. So if you've been working with the Service Alliance in the past, you may already know this. We are basically looking very strongly from a research point of view, but then as well in collaboration with all our partners at what it requires to actually shift from a manufacturing focus, from a product-centric business to more of a service business and service business model. And wider sense, it means, the world is changing, so products are getting more and more towards solutions. Outputs are more and more going to outcomes. So instead of actually producing something and running it, we're basically now more producing the outcome and the outcome value in the first place. And we have transactions and relationships. We've got, instead of suppliers, we basically have network partners. So we don't really see our suppliers anymore, but we see that there's a network of different firms. Instead of elements and singular organizations, we actually have ecosystems of multiple organizations who are supplying towards our customer, towards our end goal. And we are now focusing, of course, on this ecosystem part of this solution and of this new world that we can define in the first place. So what is a business ecosystem in the first place, and why do we want to study them? A business ecosystem is identified as a network of organizations. So individuals collaborate and evolve roles and capabilities, as well as synchronizing their investment to build value and increase efficiency. So this was John Moore in 1996. So we're not talking about something which is very not new. There's more studies or more output. So one of them is a value proposition and design. How to create products and service for customers. Value, both direct and indirect, is in brackets what we are defining. Create and capture as well has been examined in the context of resource dependency perspective. Is if there's a dependency between the two more organizations, such as in an ecosystem, companies must both create and capture value as a result of being dependent on each other from a commercial success to be achieved. So what this means in the first place is we need to understand how two organizations actually create and capture this value, and then we are basically breaking this open and we're making a difference. We are very strongly making a difference between direct and indirect value. So let's go this journey a little bit and explore this a little bit further. In this case study, we've basically just done exactly that, and we've basically ran into this saying there's multiple organizations, hence a business ecosystem, where different members basically have a competitive or non-competitive advantage, and we can put them all together to create hopefully a strategic advantage over the competition. So what does this mean? And we're going to get to the point where we're going to understand the ecosystem in a moment. But from a competitive advantage, we first of all need to understand what is the competitive situation at the moment, and this is obviously facing the customer. And then what is the knowledge of the players and the requirement for like kind of creating a strategic or creating a value proposition. So if I'm in a situation where I need to offer a new solution to a customer, I need to basically understand where my current position is with the offering which I can define, and this may be weak or strong. And then I may have knowledge of knowledge and understanding of the requirements of the players in a wider business sense, and this may be low or high. So we've basically used ecosystem mapping to help identify new radical or disruptive partnerships when our competitive position was very low or very weak, but we knew really what our requirement and what the requirement from the customer was really. We've as well used if our competitive situation was very weak, but we didn't really know what to do, then we basically understood we've used ecosystem mapping to identify new partners that can strengthen his knowledge about the customer, and then as well to understand the relationship, to explore the relationship with them, to be able to innovate and to basically create a better competitive situation. If the current competitive situation is stronger, but the knowledge of the players and requirements is really low, then it's really interesting to use ecosystem mapping and to understand this ecosystem, what the potential disruptions are, and focus on gaps or knowledge, and identify the new relationships in a wider sense. So it's really the question of understanding how to actually how to handle the situation of the low requirements understanding. And then finally, if we have a strong situation, so we have a strong competitive situation and a knowledge of players and requirements, then we can basically use ecosystem mapping and understanding this wider ecosystem to help validate what the partner and what the enterprise needs to do to kind of streamline the value creation between the different partners and their KPIs and so on. So this is really 4 parts where the collaborating partner and we have basically found where to use this ecosystem mapping as a stronghold for their competitive offering building. So, case study background. So we've basically started off with this case study where our collaborating partner has turned around to us and said, look, we've got this this contract which we can basically tender for business, but it's not it's not yet there, right? So the customer is issuing an invitation to tender, was strongly wedded to introducing more competition. Usually the company was very, very strong in the market, but they really didn't want to work only with them anymore, but they wanted to have they wanted to diversify the market basically. So therefore it was very vital that the customer that basically received this request for tender or that gave this request for tender was basically saw significant improvement in delivery of capability, and that they really see that there was a jump in innovation, so to say. So the program was as well seen as very important because it would mean that there would be potential future bids. So basically, where we are in the 2x2 matrix that we talked about earlier on this last slide is really at the bottom left. So really where people stood there and looked at each other and went like, oh, there's no way that we're going to be winning this because we're not really competitive enough. They want something different. We're kind of the normal people in the market, and they don't really want to work with us anymore. They really need something new, right? So the quotation from the partner was the objective of the research application was therefore to examine the ecosystem and develop strategic options for new partnering and value creation, thereby strengthening the commercial and technical aspects of the bid. So it's not just basically being innovative and being blue skies thinkers, but to really drill it down to kind of a commercially possible offering that basically has a technical advantage over potential other partners and what other partners are doing. So this is basically a summary of the process that we're using in these workshops, and we've done multiple in different settings and in different ways. So first of all, we basically develop an ecosystem map. So we basically map all the different partners who are in the ecosystem. We basically we understand how they work together, and we basically put them into different categories, so suppliers or influencers and so on. Then we develop a long list of members to shorten the list of predetermined selection criteria. So normally when you're mapping, you're basically having very many members, and then you really want to drill down to the members that are very important for specifically this area of expertise. These shortlist members then are then graded towards who are actually the ones who really contribute to the success of a potential bid. So who are the ones that we can really innovate with, and who are the ones that are that basically have the biggest value creation potential for this bid and for the customer in the first place. So you basically pre-select a couple of them. What they then do is basically develop brief summaries of the most important members identified. So you can basically catalog the different members, and you can basically define what their business model is, what they normally do, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and so on. And then you can really examine in detail the value exchange between these key relationship partners. And this, I'm going to go into this aspect a little bit further. This is basically research output that we had from the service lines, and then like kind of behind this whole process is basically the education consulting services here in-house work with in strong collaboration with our partner. To generate this whole process. So then we generated solution and partnership configurations. So we really thought about, well, I mean, this partner can bring one thing to the table, so we can basically mix and model them. And then we basically assess the most promising configurations to develop and select different options. So it's a 2-day workshop that we did in the first place. I just want to go slightly a little bit more in detail in the direct and indirect value exchange. So if we are looking at these partnerships and these partners that are important to us, we can turn around and say, well, me as a partner, I create value, or then, and on the other side of the partnership, my partner basically captures value. And then on the as return, basically, the other partner creates some value, which they then send to us, and we can capture this. So it's basically a flowing back and forth, so to say. So what is this? What do we call direct value, and why do we call something else indirect value in the first place? Direct value, and this is very easy to express, is basically value proposition for money. So I create some form of value, which maybe I built a machine, and on the other side, this machine is used to basically do something internally, to bash some metal, create cars, whatever it is basically to do. On the other hand, this system on the other side basically creates some form of monetary money, so like a monetary value, which is money, and they send it to us. We can then as partner basically do something with that, increase our strategic intent, pay our workers, pay for our facilities, do all these things that we need to do. And this is really just number one. So it's really this creation of direct value. The direct value has, as a fact, more an indirect value below it as well. So if I'm able to sell a new partnership, then I, as a manager, have a plus out of this. The company actually creates and captures value out of this. Strategically, we are enabled as organizations, if we are in a partnership, to do something with this partnership and to do something with the exchange between these organizations. As well, risk, right? So if we go into partnership, we normally take on risk, or we give away risk. So which maybe we are reducing risk for us, but we may be increasing risk for us as well. And these are all aspects which we can describe and think about when we actually talk about value creation and capture. And that does not mean that we create risk for the other member, but it may be that we create risk for the other member. and this may be very unintentionally as well, or then we may enable the other member to actually have a strategic advantage over other members. So, and the same thing, of course, for managers and companies as well. So we can work with this and we can conceptualize this. For the indirect values, it is not always automatic that I need to get a return of monetary value, hence money. There may be money flowing, but it doesn't have to be. So what do we do in the case study then in the first place? In the industry partner decision, like kind of what they basically got out of this in the first place was we basically looked at this value creation of like what is it that the end customer actually wants and needs, define that, and then we basically went back into the ecosystem and looked at like kind of partners, different partners who can deliver these things and basically and work with us. So we've basically like kind of developed in the workshop, we've developed 4 different options. One was called Piggyback. Use existing contracts, deliver under brands other than the clients that recognize as successful. One was called Rest in Peace, integrate own and client internal customer roles and offer a proposition that extends throughout the life of the asset. Then the next one is called Tie Up in Commercial Yards, offer lower costs through a partnership with a shipyard outside traditional naval sector. And the final one was called Happy Family, collaborate with key ecosystem members to create a competitive alliance. So, of course, like kind of you can see that in the top of the slide. We're talking about shipping, and we're talking about about building or extending the life of different assets in the shipping industry. What is important is our partner turned around to us and said, before we started the process, we feared that we were not really competitive to win this tender. So the motivation in the team was low. You know, you can probably relate to these situations, right? Where you sit there and go like, oh, let's do this as a tender now, but it's not going to work. And this would increase the risk to future potential contracts. So it was really that not only they were demotivated internally, but like they turned around and said, well, potential contracts are going to be at risk if we don't actually get this. But then they stated, we won the bid thanks to the strong support of the themes identified using the workshop, which had a significant impact on our strategic approach by evidencing the best value proposition required to deliver the solution. So by having this workshop and really understanding what the different companies surrounding the offering can deliver, they've really put together a bid which was strong and competitive rather than what they had as a first thought in the first place. So what we, like I said, what we do is in the workshop is basically we really build this process to encourage delegates to immerse themselves in detail of the value creation and capture, both within the existing relationships, but then as well in potential of new relationships. So if you need some form of digital offering, who do you take in to basically develop this digital offering? But then who do you take in to develop this digital offering? Very important as well. Who's not going to eat you for lunch and basically take over your future contracts because you've then taught them how the industry works, and you're not going to be any part of future offerings. Very important aspect there. Experience has shown that immersion leads to the eureka effect. The most delegates are previously the tactic hidden and unspoken insights. So we've really found that when we do these workshops, there's really these moments where very experienced managers step away from this complexity of the ecosystem surrounding the company and say, oh, this is actually really, it's more complicated and complex than I was expecting in the first place. So there's really an important aspect as well about the dwelling time. So like how much time do you need to actually absorb this complexity? We normally do set these workshops up so that there's an overnight break, so you can have a meal in the evening and basically reflect a little bit on what you've done in the day, and really get a little bit further into into a reflection mode. So what we believe, what we let the managers do is basically have this psychological mechanism whereby this occurs to the subject further study. So really get into the analytical detail and really understand more and synchronize between the different brains of people to basically lead outside the comfort zone, but to basically have a couple of crazy ideas as well within this area. So leads me pretty much to a conclusion. So generally, this case study and this paper, which is available on the website, is basically ecosystem value mapping offers a rapid method to identify and examine strategic partnerings, options to consider competitive advantage that can be drawn from the insight generated. So we really are able to use ecosystem mapping to develop new offerings, be it digital or non-digital, to really streamline and to work supply chains better, and to really exploit the methodology to identify new partnerships or new advantageous partnerships and partnership opportunities and relationships. Further research is being conducted at the moment, so we are basically looking at different aspects of this as from a research point of view, and we are as well looking at potential new areas of applying this. So supporting manufacturing companies in transforming their service value proposition throughout enhanced data explorations, as well as shaping, prioritizing future academic industrial research agendas. So it's multiple projects going on in the exploitation of the process that I've just introduced you to, but then as well in the exploitation of further projects, be digital ecosystem building, platform building, and similar. Would like to invite you, if you have any questions, there's a chat tool on the bottom right, where you can basically send a message, and then I can answer the question in case there's any questions. I've got one question, which is how this has to do with platforms. It's a very good question. So basically, if we look at the top level literature, then if you look at ecosystems in the first place, then of course a lot of the literature talks about talks more about the surrounding of lakes and so on, because that's a business, that's an ecosystem in the first place. If we think about business ecosystems or ecosystems within the business arena, then there's three different aspects mentioned in the literature. Number one is innovation business ecosystems. So we talk about these environments where innovation can really flourish. So you have to have a certain amount of coffee shops, or you have to there's a certain environment, a certain buzz of communication. The second one is business ecosystems. We call them as structure, or there's different theories now around, or starting to be around, where we understand how business ecosystems work in the first place. We talk about contributors that don't actually have a direct value exchange. So there's certain partners within that you may work with, but you don't actually value exchange as a direct value exchange, monetary value exchange with them. And then finally is ecosystems as platforms, where we talk around about firms who are centric to a platform. So they build this electronic exchange of value, which basically betters the outcome of whatever product gets delivered in the first place. One example for these electronic platforms would be Apple. Apple have basically decided to have the Apple Store, where you can now choose to buy media, apps, and all the rest of it. So Apple or your mobile phone in the first place, because obviously all other companies are pretty much the same, your mobile phone would be far less successful if there would not be so much contribution by app developers that are giving handy little tools into your mobile phone that you can use to do very many things. So therefore, understanding the business ecosystem overall is actually very important towards understanding how to build a platform or how to build a digital offering around your business ecosystem and how to transport potentially additional value. We talked about indirect value to your customer, which may potentially at some point return as well in monetary value, or then maybe used to create monetary value at another end of the ecosystem. Perfect. I see there's no further question for the moment. My email address is in the first slide, so you can get in contact. It's ftu20@cam.ac.uk. It's over here. So if you wish to be in contact and you've got any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Would like to thank you very much for joining me on this, in Cambridge at least, sunny day. I know normally people listening from all over the world, and would like to wish you a very beautiful rest of the day. Thank you very much.